Let's talk about Late Night with the Devil. We have a lot to cover in today's video. So the first part of the conversation, I feel the need to talk about their usage of AI in this movie because it has been very controversial. There's been a lot of people boycotting and review bombing. And so let's talk about that a little bit. If you don't care about any of that, which you probably should, because it's a conversation that needs to happen in terms of filmmaking, I think, because we're at this turning point here in this. But if you don't care, you can skip forward to the review. I'll have timestamps listed below so you can, skip the conversation about AI if you just don't care. So the creators of Late Night with the Devil admitted to using AI on 3 images in the movie. They're still images, and they are the cutaway scenes for the "we'll be right back" kind of screens. And this is something that they used to do in old television in the 70s, where they would, cut to a cutaway screen before going into commercials. So they have used AI in terms of making this image, and also in the logo, from what I understand, for the Night Owls logo for the television show that they invented for this movie. Now, they claimed to further edit these images. So from my understanding, they had an artist on their team that used AI first to get these general images and then went in and further edited them. Personally, I have my doubts about that. I'm not an artist, but I have my doubts about it because the images do look like AI, and they don't look like they're edited or created by a human, because there are certain key factors and things that you can just tell are AI. So now we entered the debate. Is it ethical to use AI for artistic purposes when it is taking away a job from an actual human artist? So there are very passionate people, mostly on the side against AI. I don't think people are that passionate about AI. They're just accepting of it. And of course, there is the argument that AI is actually plagiarizing existing art by taking source material from places on the internet and using that to create the images from AI. So some people claim that this is in stealing territory, that it actually steals artwork. I don't know enough about AI to really comment on that, so I'm not going to share my opinion on whether or not AI is technically stealing original artist art. So given that I am not an artist, who am I? Well, in terms of graphic art and creating art, I'm a writer, which, maybe that'll be threatened one day, right? People are using AI to write as well. But I'm not an image artist, I don't create art in that sense. So who am I to really say what is right and wrong? I'm a nobody in that regard. But I do want to share my opinion on it personally and just my takeaway and how it impacts me as a viewer of movies and where I kind of stand on that. And I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate because I don't necessarily agree with all of the takes that I'm seeing online. I don't believe in boycotting a movie when there are dozens of other artists that have worked on that movie. I don't know if that is going to get the message across necessarily, specifically for the sake of 3 still images that really had no impact on the movie at all. I understand where people are coming from when it comes to this conversation about AI, but I do think every situation needs to be looked at a little bit more with nuance and context. I feel like that's very important here because this movie is not 100% made by AI, and the way people are reacting to it, it's as if they heavily relied on AI. And to me, it was very, very minimal within the movie. So I don't feel like it's fair to review bomb this movie on Letterboxd and rate it really low, even though they haven't seen the movie, just because they used a little bit of AI for 3 images. Now, they claim it's these 3 images and they're brief in the movie. I understand the argument that you do see the logo constantly throughout the movie. So I don't believe it's, just 3 little flashes and then that's it. It is on screen for the duration of the movie. So I understand that, the image is there. It's not just little cutaway screens like they claim it is. So many people believe that AI automatically means that it's a bad thing and that all AI is bad. And I'm not saying that they used it fairly in this movie. I don't, again, who am I to say that? I'm saying it didn't take away from my viewing experience knowing that AI was used in these images. And when it comes to Late Night with the Devil, which was a lower budget production, if it allows them to save a little bit of time and and money and spend that budget elsewhere within the movie, then I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to rely on AI for parts of the movie. I think we're entering a time, like I said in the beginning, we're at this turning point where it's about to happen more and more often, and it's inevitable that filmmakers and creators are going to be relying on AI as a means to save money and time. And I'm not defending that. I'm not for it when it comes to big production and companies that have lots of money and big budgets to spend. If Disney used AI for an entire movie, that I don't think is fair, because they are then literally taking away jobs from people. And I have a feeling we're going to cross this threshold with AI where we won't actually be able to tell at all. And then there's that moral argument. Should we be told what is AI and what isn't? Because we're not going to be able to tell soon enough. In a couple years, I can guarantee more filmmakers are going to be relying on AI for some things, and we won't actually know. We won't notice because it won't look like AI. Right now, we're in this time where we can tell when something is AI. It's not always going to be like that. Look at the advancement of AI thus far. So should they then ethically be required to tell us when something is AI? I have a feeling it's going to be like at the very end of the movie, at the end of the credits, it'll have a little asterisk. Some images were created with AI, or some dialogue or something. It'll have like a little thing like that. And then it'll be up to us to like continuously check for those things. And it's only a matter of time. That is where I see this technology going, that it's just going to keep happening. And I don't know if boycotting indie movies is going to be the way to go to protest this. I don't really know what to do. Maybe that's why people are doing it, because they also don't know what to do, because AI, I don't think, can be stopped at this point. I think it is inevitable that people are going to use it more and more. And obviously, nothing compares to human art, and AI cannot come close to it, in my opinion. Like, nothing will compare to the time and effort that goes into creating from a human being. And I know it feels like AI is threatening everything right now, and soon it's going to put every artist out of a job. There's a handful of jobs, I think, that are safe from AI. And is it inevitable that we're going to see it more? Absolutely. Do I think it's going to 100% replace filmmaking as we know it? No, I don't. Maybe in 100 years, we'll be at a new place with this technology and movies will just cease to be what we know them now. I don't like AI personally. Like, I am very weirded out by it as a millennial who has seen a lot of technology, progress at this rapid pace, but I've never seen anything like AI progress in this way, at this speed. And it is scary. Like, it is genuinely horrifying. There needs to be regulations around it. And I'm hoping filmmakers and that community, Hollywood, will also have regulations on it, because legally there has to be things set in place. And I'm hoping they move to a place where they can actually protect artists and like genuine filmmaking. So that's my 2 cents on AI. Do I like it? No, absolutely not. It terrifies me, to be honest. And that sounds like such a boomer thing to be like scared of technology. But I don't like where it's going either. But I do think it is kind of inevitable. And I don't think personally how Late Night with the Devil used it is really all that bad, because we're going to look back at this time probably when movies are just purely AI and be like, it's still a great original movie, right? It's just 3 images. Anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts. And obviously this is a very polarizing discussion. Actually, it's not even polarizing. It's just a lot of people are against AI and are boycotting this movie. So I would love to know if you are one of those people that feel very passionate about it, and leave a comment. What are your thoughts on this? In my opinion, I don't think this is the first movie that's used AI. It's just the first one that we've kind of noticed. Anyway, let's get into my formal review for Late Night with the Devil. AI aside, we're going to ignore that for a little bit. You heard my opinions on it. A live television broadcast in 1997 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms. So this is actually technically a found footage movie, so you'd think I'd be all over it. And I thought it also was going to be a found footage movie, but it didn't feel like it no part of this really felt like a found footage movie. In fact, I don't even know if I would personally consider it a found footage movie. Firstly, there's two reasons for that. The first thing is, in the beginning, we have about 8 minutes of a narrator explaining how we got to where we are, right? We explain how we get to this episode. What is the entire backstory? I understand the stylistic choice because this is very reminiscent of TV programs, documentaries from the 70s, and you could tell that based on the narrator's tone and the voice. It feels very dated and era appropriate. However, I don't love a setup. You know, I don't love to be explained everything right off the bat. But given that this is a found footage movie, they kind of have to do that, right? They have to give a little bit of build up for you and set it up so you know who these people are, because otherwise it's just going to be weird and awkward in the found footage setting. The second thing that makes this not a found footage movie to me is when they cut to commercial break, it goes to black and white, and we follow them around as they're going about backstage and in between takes on the talk show, right, during the commercial breaks. And there aren't actually any cameras following them. Obviously, we have the set cameras that they use for the TV show, the show that's being filmed, and we kind of stick with that perspective, but the cameras aren't actually following them backstage. And turning it black and white to signify that this is not live, it is now, or I guess not recording, it's not on air, we're actually, you know, on a commercial break. I don't know if that's enough for me to, like, you know, because there's a lot of scenes in this that are in between, you know, during the commercial break, and those scenes are not found footage in any way. And that makes up a big part of the movie. So to me, those two things kind of negate the fact this is a found footage movie, but that's just me. That's just my definition of found footage, which is my favorite subgenre of horror. It's my favorite style of horror, if you will. So this movie was actually one of my most anticipated movies of the year. And then I got even more excited about it because I saw opening weekend, it had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Since then, it is now at 96% from critics and 81% from audiences. I suspect that that drop between the two and it going to 81 is because of AI, and a lot of people, like I said, are review bombing this and just rating it really, really low. So I don't know if I would really trust ratings on whether or not the quality is good. It's just a lot of people are boycotting. So keep that in mind. This had a lot of hype around it, and sometimes that's not a good thing because then you get your expectations up, and a lot of movie reviewers that I trust really enjoyed it, although they did also comment on the AI. Cinema Joe on TikTok is one of my favorites. I always share opinions with him on most things, so he's one of my favorites to look at for movie releases, and he did enjoy it, however also had commentary on the fact it was AI. So firstly, I love the story and the idea of this. I think it's a very original idea and a great setting for a horror movie to take place on a talk show. I feel like we haven't really explored that very much. There's obviously been talk show scenes in many movies, but in this specific setting, having like a demonic possession on TV, it seems like that is exactly what would happen in the 1970s, you know, that exploitation and that shock factor of TV back then. Now, personally, I felt the pacing was a little bit off. It kind of is nothing for a while and then really ramps up in the very, very end. And so for me, it wasn't balanced out, and I preferred the pacing to be a little bit better, a little bit more exciting. I felt like it was a slow build up, and sometimes that's fine to like build the tension, but I don't think it was as effective in building the tension that it needed in order to execute the ending and make it really impactful. So not a lot is happening for a long time while we're kind of building the tension, but the tension comes from you knowing something that's going to happen. Like, you know, in the ballpark, it's a demonic possession movie, so you know it's going to happen. But that shouldn't be the only thing that we're working off of when it comes to building that suspense. So a lot of it, you're just kind of like waiting for things to happen. It's not genuine tension. It's like you're just waiting for it to actually transpire. And one thing that I think was kind of a downfall for me personally, but I don't think it's going to be for everyone, is it felt like I was watching a TV show. And I know that obviously that's what they're going for, right? They were effective in that, but the tone of it was not that serious most of the time. Obviously, that's not the intention. But I do wish it was a little bit more dire and a little bit more serious along the way. Everyone's goofing, you know, even in serious moments, they're laughing it off because they're on TV, right? They got to like play it off a little bit. So it was accurate to the style that they chose, but I didn't like it. I didn't really like it. And it's like, obviously that's what they were going for, but at the end of the day, it's a horror movie. So I wanted a little bit more horror elements in there and suspense and like stop goofing around. Now, unfortunately, I do think we see the lower budget in this. I just don't feel like I loved this as much as I wanted to. I thought it was a really original idea, but the CGI was just not effective for me. Like, I wish they had toned that down a little bit. They used a lot of it in the end, which I don't think was completely necessary. What they came up with was cool, and it was a very unique idea, unique elements, but the CG did not work for me. I didn't really like it. Now, the concept in general is kind of a tired idea, and I feel like they did something original with it by having this girl be rescued from a cult from the 1970s, which makes sense. Again, era appropriate. Is it a little bit on the nose with everything being in the 70s? Yeah, but I'm just happy to see another era that's not the 1980s. And in general, I'm being a real negative Nancy today. I don't know what it is. Sometimes I just get in these moods where I just want to criticize everything. But in general, I'm just kind of tired of the demonic possession storylines to begin with. Religious horror, just like Catholic horror or demons, like all of it, I feel like is just tired at this point. It's just a little cliche, and you can't do it without being cliche because they feel like they have to do what everyone else does. When someone's possessed by a demon, there's a couple things that you know for sure is going to happen. There's going to be levitation, there's going to be a demonic voice, there's going to be transformations, right? There's going to be random things happening that are unexplainable, technology cutting out, whatever. It's like you can check them off on a list of things that are going to happen in a demonic possession movie, and I'm just tired of it. I really am not trying to be that negative. It's just, I gotta be honest. I'm just being honest about my opinions here, and I just want a little bit more original horror nowadays. And like, yes, they did something original with it, with the setting and the overall concept of putting it on TV and airing it on TV. It just feels like something that would have happened back then if demonic possessions were real. And that's what I've been asking for from movies for the last 5 years, is to be original. If you're gonna take a concept that's tired, make it original. And they did that. So, you know, I'm not going to complain too much about it, but it was a little lackluster for me. And although when we get to the climax, it was a cool interpretation, it still fell flat for me. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's because there was lack of tension building. For me, it just didn't hit like I thought it would, you know, because like I said, the interpretation was cool. It was something different. And I liked the image overall. It was, you know, unique and kind of weird. But I feel like maybe the CGI was what took me out of it, and the ending storyline and like how they actually like wrap everything up. No spoilers in this video, by the way. Something about it was just off for me. It's like supposed to be this culmination of all this tension, and then it just kind of like happened and then it ended. And that was it. I did like the last scene, like the final moment. I liked the impact of that. I felt like that was really effective. But I thought it was like a clever way to end it and like a good way to like wrap up all that climax and everything. So sadly, I think the hype for this one made me have too high expectations going in, even though I knew it was on the lower budget side, and that generally does not bother me. I love a lot of lower budget movies. That does not faze me. But something about this one I was just disappointed by it. I just was a little bit disappointed by this movie as a whole. It wasn't bad. Like, I did enjoy it. I had a good time, but I'm just not on the hype train for this movie, which is kind of disappointing because it was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I just feel like a 3 is a little harsh, and a 4 just doesn't feel fair either. So maybe we'll go right in the middle there at 3.5. It was good. It just wasn't as standout as I wanted it to be. I wish they had stuck with something, you know, like stuck with a tone. It just felt so strange. Obviously the ending was the strongest horror part because that's where things actually were happening. But it felt disjointed from all the buildup in the in the slower burn part of the movie. So I wish it was more balanced, you know? I just wish they balanced it out a little bit. Spread out the horror, because the horror in the beginning, it just wasn't that horrific or anything. I don't know. When it comes to lower budgets like this, I wish, like I say this all the time, you keep it simple. And I wish they kept it a little simpler in the end, because I think they were a little overzealous with that CGI, that I just wasn't a fan of that. But I liked it overall. I would recommend it and recommend supporting it because it is a smaller budget indie movie, and I'm always in support of movies like that regardless. I believe this will be out on Shudder early April if you aren't able to catch it in theaters or you just want to wait. It'll be on Shudder soon. So what are your thoughts on Late Night with the Devil and all of its controversy going around? Do you think it was intentional? I don't know. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying there's theories because of the content of the movie. I don't know. Anyway, leave a comment down below. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll review Immaculate in a couple days.